Hello, I'm Dave March, the Spy Guy. You watched my video yesterday. I was talking about how I'm trying to get away from and change my format and get back to talking about spies and stuff instead of being angry about the world. So we'll still occasionally do stuff covering breaking news events, but only if it really relates to intelligence. So I'm not going to keep going off and on about the virus because that's just there's a lots of other people talking about that, and I want to talk about spies. So yesterday, I did a video, and someone commented on the video, and they asked me, they wanted to know which one was my favorite Roger Moore Bond flick and favorite Pierce Brosnan Bond flick, and that got me to thinking about all the James Bond movies, and my response to him was either for Roger Moore, it's a kind of toss up for Live and Let Die, or For Your Eyes Only, because I really appreciate the later one as I grew older and got more interest in spies because it's the most realistic James Bond movie ever made. Casino Royale, the remake, or sorry, the proper version of it, not that David Niven thing that he made as a parody. David Niven was an actual spy, and we'll actually talk about him in a separate episode sometime in the future. That'll be great. But right now, and so that's why I liked For Your Eyes Only. But when I put together a list, that's what I'm talking today about, the list of all James Bond movies and how I rank them. I did not include that movie. Casino Royale is really great, and the late one is really great. It is going to be ranked high on the list, but it is not the most realistic James Bond movie ever made. That is For Your Eyes Only, which is ironic since it comes out of the Roger Moore era, which is known for being the most campy of all James Bond. Though Sean Connery gets into it too. I'll talk about that when I get to that. So I put together a list. A guy I know will follow on YouTube is a guy named Andy Signore from Popcorn Planet. He did one. His favorite, his most famous phrase is "This is tough," and it was tough putting this one list together. And he did one for all the Marvel movies. Now I'm going to do one for the James Bond movies because his show is more about pop culture, and mine is about spies. And let's talk about the most famous spy series ever. Well, I'll talk about other spy movie series in the future that are done differently and better. So from worst to best, the one I dislike the most is Spectre. I think a lot of people will be like shocked to hear that, but Spectre is lazy, the laziest James Bond movie ever made. Has no real feeling. There is one or two great action scenes later on. That stuff on the train's actually pretty good, but the plot's convoluted. What is Christoph Waltz's master plan? When James Bond breaks out of his place and is like literally walking, almost like I felt like he should be in a wheelchair, not walking there, barely walking out, machine gunning people. Was just standing there. Looked like he was on an episode of old Doctor Who. The helicopter thing in the beginning, so boring. It is just a movie is boring, so boring. So that's why Spectre is the worst. Quantum of Solace, I'll give some. Quantum of Solace is also another boring Daniel Craig movie, but at least he and the director had an excuse. There was a writer's strike, and they wrote that movie. That's why Quantum of Solace is such a mess, coming off of the high of the last movie. Instead of postponing the movie and taking some time and waiting for a writer could come in and finish the movie, they decided to damn the torpedoes and made the movie. And Quantum of Solace is this kind of soulless mess. The next one up is Die Another Day. And one of the reasons why I hate Die Another Day, despite the fact I don't mind Madonna's song. I actually have it liked, and there's that great sword fight in it. But the Die Another Day is almost a direct ripoff of Diamonds Are Forever. Diamonds Are Forever is in my top 10. This is not. Die Another Day is Pierce Brosnan at his worst, and he goes rogue for no reason. There's some sort of plot where he gets captured by the North Koreans and tortured after doing this great jet ski thing. Halle Berry's brought in; she's actually pretty good, but it's just this lazy. It's just like Quantum of Solace type thing that I don't care about. Next two movies up are Octopussy and View to a Kill, and I really struggled. I haven't seen those movies in years, but there's some. But Octopussy was just boring. It was another one like Spectre, and maybe I would rate it lower but I've seen Spectre recently. I haven't seen Octopussy in 20 or 25 years. It does have that really neat takeoff at the beginning. The plots, yeah, like I said, it comes in this era when Roger Moore went from all this crazy camp to trying to be more realistic, and certainly the Russian plot of trying to get a nuclear bomb in so he can break the new NATO and then allow his armies to invade so he can get this glorious moment of conquering half of Europe. Yeah, it just didn't feel very James Bondy. Kind of broke the formula, and unlike some of the other movies, it doesn't really rate. And the reason I gave View to a Kill, there's some fun moments. You know what? The reason I gave View to a Kill is because the View to a Kill theme song is sung by Duran Duran. It's the only James Bond theme that went to #1. It's a great song, so it gets to be rated higher than Octopussy based on the song. The next movie up is The World Is Not Enough. There's a lot of these Pierce Brosnan movies that just kind of seem to melt together in time. World Is Not Enough. I believe that's the one with the Garbage sings the song, which I like, but like there's this weird plot with this terrorist. They're trying to blow up Turkey to screw around with the oil supplies. It's just like, and this terrorist who has a bullet that's slowly killing him over time. It just weird. So the next one up is Tomorrow Never Dies, the other Pierce Brosnan movie that's in the same kind of caliber. It's another one. I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday, and he says so many of these James Bond movies are basically the same plot, where they just like Tomorrow Never Dies, or it's just a boat taking over other boats. Like we saw this in The Spy Who Loved Me. It's like, yes, that's the problem with a lot of these Pierce Brosnan movies. They're ripping off much better, more movies, or Sean Connery movies. It's just like come up with something original. Okay, next up, I'm going to take a drink. From Russia with Love. The problem with the first two James Bond movies is that they're just, they haven't cracked the formula yet. And From Russia with Love is just kind of this long, boring train ride, and there's defectors and some other stuff, and I really don't remember anything about it. It's another one of these ones, I own it somewhere around here, but I just don't recall being very good. And it suffers from the fact that they hadn't cracked the formula of James Bond yet. So it just doesn't work. I mean, I'm going to talk about Dr. No in a minute, and while I'll just go and get through the other movies in the list. Coming in at 17, The Man with the Golden Gun, just kind of a lazy plot. The end result of the movie is they get the source of cold fusion, which we'll never see again. Christopher Lee, the superfluous third nipple. I have one bullet. You mean there's something the final scene there where they're fighting is kind of good. The fact that they got the guy from not Forbidden Island. I'm trying to remember, but the short guys in there. There's a lot of like weird things going on in this movie. Christopher Lee is an interesting choice for a villain. It's good to see more going up against that, but just. It's a weird movie. It just won't hold up. But, there is a song by Alice Cooper does a song called The Man with the Golden Gun. You should listen to that. It's great. The next one, I included Never Say Never Again in this list. It's coming in at 16, even though it's not a canon James Bond film. But Never Say Never Again basically Sean Connery had half the rights to, Thunderball, and he used those rights to make his own movie, made a lot of money off the deal. There's some weird, great parts in the movie, like when he's on a nuclear sub and he goes to the American captain and he's like, I would like to use this thing on the majig. And the captain's like, how do you know about that? It's like, that's classified top secret. And he's like, well, sir, I couldn't help but notice when I was breaking into some KGB files, they had the full specs on the item. So I didn't think it would matter. And it's like, what? There's nuclear bombs being used by Ransom. At least it's a classic Blofeld plot. There's this crazy woman who uses snakes to kill her her lovers. It has some moments in it. The next one up is Doctor No, and a lot of people would like to see the first James Bond movie be much higher. But the fact is, they don't know what they're doing yet. We know now when when you're listening to the theme, and it goes going dun 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 dun, and it's like, he's okay. James Bond's going into trouble. No, in Doctor No, it's when they play it when he's going in to check into the hotel. They just don't know what they're doing with the themes yet. There's this crazy plot, like the opening song is 3 blind mice, and there's these like black guys all throughout the movie, 3 blind black guys going around kind of thing. It's just this really strange movie, and I don't give it a higher rating because of that. It's just they don't crack the formula of Doctor No. No, there is some beautiful women in it. The plot line's a little weird. But you're getting into Spectre territory. The next one up is another one. Timothy Dalton's The Living Daylights comes in at number 14. Living Daylights has it's a lot of fun. It is certainly more of a campy movie for James Bond, kind of a return to the Roger Moore era. There's gadgets, there's beautiful women. There is the pipeline to the West scene. There is but it's kind of a strange plot because it's all about some guys getting not wanting to go back on a $50 million contract. So there's the defecting generals, and the scene where the defecting general is kidnapped back out of the hands of the British is great. Though I would thought that guy would have like when he's surrounded by guys, and even though the guy's got a gun on him, he would have said something. It's just a little unbelievable in that regard. But there is some great stuff in that movie. I do recommend it. That's why I own it. On Her Majesty's Secret Service, I know a lot of people hate this movie, and it's all because of what George Lazenby did. And yeah, it's true. He was an asshole. He gave up a franchise, but they spent so much time setting up all this James Bond lore. Like the title, The World Is Not Enough, no, the movie that's 20, that title comes from him going to his family's genealogy and finding out he's descended from these Bond knights back in them who served in the Edwardian kingdoms, and their phrase, their motto, the world is not enough. And there's just all this interesting stuff happening in the movie. It was clearly they were going to set up a franchise in a way of continued stories based around the stuff here with him constantly fighting Blofeld, and it's just like it's this grand wasted opportunity. And there's a through line. Most people don't realize this watching the Moore movies. Moore takes stuff from On Her Majesty's Secret Service, and it plays out through the movies. He has a later revenge scene. I think it is in For Your Eyes Only, where he has to kill off Blofeld and drops him down the chute. There's like international exports, all these things that are coming out of On Her Majesty's Secret Service that are being played out in the Roger Moore, including the fact that Moore says, yes, they talk about him being married once and that she died. So Moore is actually taking on at least some of the elements. It doesn't come up as much, but he does take some of his era of James Bond includes the stuff that came out of On Her Majesty's Secret Service. So be sure to watch it. You should watch it once just so you can get all the lore out of it. It is the movie that sets up later James Bond canon until the reset with Craig. For Your Eyes Only is the next one. It's coming in number 12. I thought I was going to put it much higher on my list, but it is, like I said, the most realistic James Bond plot ever. He gives up Roger Moore gives up all the gadgets. His supercar is blown up almost immediately. There's some weird car chases where he's chasing down a hill in this like car that only has like 2 cylinders or something like that. There is, but the plot is he's being assigned to find. There's the British cipher machine that controls their nuclear weapons on their polar subs is lost, and then there's a salvage operation to try and get it. And he hooks up with this girl who turns out to be Pierce Brosnan's wife, or late wife now, but at the time that was his wife. And Pierce Brosnan actually went down there and hung out with the cast during the filming because his wife is the Bond girl, and she's like, and they apparently were joking about how he'll be one day the next James Bond, and turns out he was. So it's really fun times to go that. There's a live stream of Pierce Brosnan talking about Goldeneye, and he talks a lot about that. So if you want to have some fun, go check it out. I'm going to provide a link below. Next one up is Moonraker. Is, you know what? It's like kind of height of his powers. Once again, we see that they bring back a returning villain from a previous Bond film, the Henchman. There's this crazy plot to like destroy all the world and repopulate it with the perfect chosen people. There's a billionaire single-handedly paying for the entire U.S. space program, Elon Musk style. There's like interesting things happening here. It's a bit of a hoot to watch. It is, and once again, it's from that era when James Bond still didn't take out all the bad guys single-handedly, which I've always thought is one of my problems is this, and I would love to see that kind of return where James Bond actually calls in reinforcements, and he leads an army of men to solve the problem of highly trained or specialists or kidnapped sailors or whatever. That's something I enjoyed, and when they dropped that in the later movies, that got bothersome and stupid. It's one of the only failings I have against Goldeneye. The next one up is You Only Live Twice. This is this is Sean Connery comes back for a couple movies. So when he did the first 3 or 4 movies, and then George Lazenby kind of blows it all up. So Sean Connery comes back and does You Only Live Twice. And it's starting to be that kind of crazy campy movie. He does get married in that one for his cover with his ninja. There's all these ninjas attacking an island. There's when Sean Connery goes to camp, and this is where we see some of the stuff, more Roger Moore stuff later. This is Sean Connery showing us how it's done. Next one up is Thunderball, a bit more realistic movie than You Only Live Twice. There is nuclear weapons being used all over the planet, and Blofeld is ransoming the world. It's pretty good. Next movie I'm going to risk. We are also, by the way, we are in number 8. I wasn't doing the top 10, so top 10 was You Only Live Twice, Thunderball, Skyfall. I know lots of people want this movie to be higher on this list, but the fact is, it's got plot problems. It's just maximum fan service, and I'm a fan, and I like fan service, and I like to see my stuff being validated. And the bad guy is one of the best James Bond bad guys, and there's some really great stuff going on there. But the fact is, the plot has some weaknesses, and that entire chase underground where the bad guys got pre-positioned bombs that he had no way of knowing having those bombs set up in that particular order. Why does the British have all their spies on one disc that can be stolen? That seems pretty stupid to me. You guys never heard of compartmentalization? Oh my God, come on, people. Next one up, Diamonds Are Forever. So Diamonds Are Forever is another Sean Connery movie. It's pretty great. It's got some great scenes with Q and the girl, and this complicated scene with who has the right tape and the weapons, the super weapon that will one day be ripped off and used in Die Another Day. So movies. Look, if you're ripping off one of the good movies to make your bad movie, the good movie should be high on the list. Now, the next one up is The Spy Who Loved Me, and this is Roger Moore at the height of his powers, at the top of his game. This movie is like crazy great. And you got one of the most beautiful women in the world as the Bond girl. There is it introduces us to that to one of that Jaws, that crazy guy. It's so good, and it's the last movie where James Bond does not single-handedly solve the problem. There's a bunch of kidnapped sailors from things, and they have to work. He leads them in to solve the problem so they can save the day. And it's just reminded us that one time James Bond was not an immortal god. So that's why it's there. Now I'm going to get into the top 5. This one will surprise some, I think. License to Kill. License to Kill is probably one of the most misunderstood James Bond movies ever, because it was the second Timothy Dalton movie, and it came out against Indiana Jones, and this is the summer of the first Tim Burton Batman, and Lethal Weapon 2. And so it kind of tanked in the American box office, but because it was such a high global earning movie, it's still the 12th largest, most successful movie of the year, made $150 million, but it gets screwed up because it was the last one for the James Bond for like 10 years, because the producer of the films, Broccoli, dies sometime afterwards, and then there's a huge fight in the family over who gets to control the future franchises. So it's not for another 10 years that they come back and make that the next movie. Apparently Timothy Dalton was offered Goldeneye. So yeah, so we have that, but there's some other things that are happening in License to Kill. I mean, it's the first PG-13 James Bond. It is got swearing. There's some graphic violence. It has one, in my opinion, the best song of Gladys Knight belting out that tune is probably the best one of the movies ever made, songs ever made. There's just so much going on. There is like the bad guys giving a lot of meaty stuff. So I listened to this Spycast podcast, and they actually did an interview with their first Bond villain back in 2017, Robert Davey. And it is really great because Robert talks about the making of the movie and how he and Timothy Dalton worked together with the writers to give some of the more meatier parts to the villain, so the villain would be better. And they gave some of those catchy one-liners that James Bond would say to the villain, so the villain would be more better. And that it also has like him going rogue. Now it does have this really sappy, happy ending that kind of comes out of nowhere. And the movie kind of suffers from that, and there is kind of a weird plot near the end where with the priest and that, or sorry, the telepreacher. But you know what, I think it's one of the better movies. It's in the top 5, and I really recommend I also own License to Kill, so you should probably check it out. So it is not one that almost killed the franchise, and don't let people say that to you. The franchise went on a hiatus because of internal squabbling. Now we come back to the next movie on the list. Number 4, I'm going to put in Live and Let Die. It's my favorite Roger Moore movie. It's just crazy, over the top. Another incredibly beautiful woman as is thing. But Yaphet Kotto just really brings a lot to that role as the head of the Haitian crime family, and there's stuff with gators, and like guy is missing the hand, and there's the reflexive dart launcher, and there's a lot of fun stuff there. There's that stuff with the cop who shows up in Man with a Golden Gun, and it's like it's not quite campy there. And Moore does try to change things up. You'll notice that he only drinks bourbon in that movie. He's not drinking the martini, chicken not stirred. They bring it back in later movies, but he tries to do some differentiating there to really change it up. So that's Live and Let Die is my favorite horror movie. It is the plot line there. You know, we're in the end we're going to have a 50-year monopoly, and like we in the phone company will be the only ones having a 50-year monopoly. But even the phone company lost their monopoly in Kodo. But there's just some great stuff in that movie. A lot of fun. The next movie I put on here is Daniel Craig's Casino Royale. It is a worthy attempt to make a more serious Bond movie, but in some ways, I think it fails because all the movies that came after it were just so bad. Even Skyfall is just kind of ridiculous. It's more like a campy Daniel Craig movie. So Casino Royale, but it was this gritty hard rock movie, the torture scene, the stealing. But there's a couple of weird things in that movie. Like, why does this guy have to play this card game? Why doesn't more just Craig, when he's being tortured, go to the guys who are torturing him and say, hey, you hand over your boss to me and I will give you $5 million each. He has all the money. Why are these guys following this guy around when they know that Daniel Craig has all the money? He can fucking give it to them. Sorry, I shouldn't swear. And this is supposed to be a bit more family-friendly type show. But that's just what is going on there. The great one, the next movie I think is a better James Bond, and it comes back in a way that really elevates the thing. It was kind of the greatest way to start off a new franchise in a way, because we had been on this long hiatus. Apparently, Timothy Dalton did have a 3-picture deal. He did turn down the part. He was too old by that time. I think he didn't want to be coming back from the Bond franchise and doing a Roger Moore, A View to a Kill style thing. He wanted to go off and do other parts, and I'm glad he did it. Timothy Dalton's still a pretty good Bond, in my opinion. But GoldenEye is just this ridiculous movie from start to finish of awesomeness, with weapons of mass destruction, that tank scene, the incredibly gorgeous Bond girl. On top is funny. It has a Canadian in the movie. Mine's an admiral. There's just so much going on in this movie, and it's so great to just come back. Sean Bean, I think, is the best of all the villains out there. The fact that he is a former double agent who has a really good reason to hate the British, and why they would ever let someone in his position get to where he was. But he had all these skills. So 007, he could think like a double agent. So he knew and had worked with James Bond for all these years. So he knew him inside out like a friend would. And there's just like so much interesting things happening there. But that's why GoldenEye is number 2. And then we come to the number 1 movie is Goldfinger. Goldfinger is when they finally cracked the James Bond code. That's why I put it at number 1. It's also one of the great James Bond movies. Sean Connery is at his best. There's a, do you expect me to talk? No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die. The girl covered in gold paint because James Bond made her look like Goldfinger look like an idiot. There's just like, we established so much stuff going on in this movie. It establishes the fact that the bad guy usually has a sidekick. The first real movies where we're going to see crazy names, like when I first watched it with a friend of mine and my dad one day in our teens, and suddenly it says, this woman is pussy galore. I'm like, what the hell am I watching here? Yeah, and the car chase. There's just so many great things in this movie, and it established the goal of the franchise and really made this movie work. So, Mike, I just wanted to do kind of a fun thing here, and I figured that if I'm the spy guy, I'm going to get asked this question: what rate the James Bond movies? Well, here you have my list. As I said, this was tough, but a lot of fun. I'm going to hopefully do more fun stuff and get this kind of going. And if you like this, like, share, subscribe below. And I'm going to tag in Popcorn Planet's Marvel list so you can see a guy do it much better than me. So that'll be in my titles. So thanks for coming by, and thanks for watching The Spy Guy. And now I will see how long this took, because a friend of mine said, this is going to take you forever. And I'm like, well, we'll see.